Welcome to the Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of a brand new tool that we've just created called the Exit Readiness Assessment. Now, it is for founders and CEOs that are looking to exit from their business operations. Now, it doesn't matter even if you're not looking to exit right now, I would highly recommend to go and take the assessment straight away. It helps you to identify areas in your business that you need to work on to help you towards that exit strategy. And at the end of it, you get a personalized report on some of the areas that you're doing particularly well in and some of the areas that you need to make some improvements to. Make sure you head over to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com. Enjoy. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be 100% honest with yourself. Do you get anxiety when it comes to recruitment? Now, I'm talking about the 3 a.m. pit in your stomach where you know the next hire could make or break your company. You're a founder, you're a leader, you built your business from scratch, but you've hit a major bottleneck. And the bottleneck is not the market, it is not the product, it is people. You're struggling to attract the right talent, not just any talent. You're staring at the gaps in your team, whether it be a marketing guru, an operations wizard, and you can't quite seem to build what I call the all-around dream team. And maybe, just maybe, you might be afraid to hire people that are actually better than you. Now, if this is you, you're not alone. I've experienced exactly the same thing, but I'm going to bring the ultimate expert in to solve this. Now, last year, she joined us on an episode, and no exaggeration here, and I just told her offline that it was actually one of the most downloaded episodes of 24. You know her as the talent maximizer, and she's a globally recognized expert, leadership expert. She's a best-selling author. She's got 7 different books, and the person CEOs and founders call when they are done guessing and ready to win the war of talent. Please welcome back Roberta Madison. Welcome.
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be back with you.
It's great to have you back here on the show. I mean, we don't have that many returning guests, but I thought that because we had such a great conversation last time, I was like, well, hell, why not?
Well, I'm glad you decided that.
But how are you keeping otherwise? Are things well with you?
Things are great. Couldn't be better.
Absolutely amazing. You know, it's really interesting. I just love some of our conversations that we and we'll have to share with the listeners, of course, about what we were talking about. You know, and things have really moved on since our last conversation. And I think it was just over 18 months ago that you were here on the show. And it's just amazing how the world has moved on and just how business has moved on in a way. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. It's a whole different picture today. For
Oh,
better
absolutely.
or worse.
Absolutely agree. But listen, I want to kind of like jump straight in, if I may, because I like jumping straight in the deep end. And for you guys that are listening, by the way, we're going to be talking about a number of subjects. We're going to be talking about AI, of course. We're going to be talking a little bit about the world's in a bit of a funny place right now. We're going to be talking a little bit about retention. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the anxieties that we talked about in the introduction, of course. We're going to be talking about A players and, you know, the reasons why maybe you if you are a founder or a leader listening in and thinking to yourself, do I really want to hire people better than me? I don't want to be exposed. You might get this kind of imposter syndrome. But the last thing we're going to be talking about is the scarcity mindset as well. There's a lot of small businesses out there, and the reasons why they grow or they don't grow is because the founder itself is the bottleneck and they have this scarcity mindset. And hopefully Roberta is going to help us to demystify and get us through that scarcity mindset. So, but anyway, let's jump in. I want to talk a little bit about the founder's brain, or a lot of the leader's brain. What I'd like to know is, we often get what I call internal blocks. And I want to just kind of address what I call the elephant in the room. Because for founders right now who are, I suppose, terrified that if they hire someone that's smarter than them, that's got more talent than them, that may expose like their weaknesses, right? How do you specifically coach leaders that have this, what I call scarcity mindset, and how do you show them to actually help them to actually hire people that are actually better than them? How do you help them to overcome that mindset shift?
Well, we usually start out by talking about why they're hiring this person. And generally speaking, it's because they have tasks that either they're not really great at doing, or they no longer want to do, or they don't have time to do. And so, you can almost guarantee that those tasks and goals and objectives are going to come back onto your plate if you don't hire someone who is better than you. And, we see a lot of founders and a lot of leaders who become micromanagers because they don't believe that anybody else can do what they do as well. And, quite frankly, that's just not true. And so you've got to first have that shift in your mindset that, yes, there are other people who can do this. And guess what? Some of them can do it better than me. And I would be thrilled if somebody could do it 80% as well as I can. And I think when we get them at 80% place, I think then they're more than willing to have somebody who is actually perhaps a little bit better than them.
Yeah. I was going to say, because like there's often going to be a dialogue between a founder or a leader, and they have these certain belief systems which is ingrained in their subconscious brain. And is there when you get resistance from them, because you're going to get resistance, and you're going to be like then trying to challenge that status quo or that belief system, what are often some of the belief systems that you're often faced with when you have a conversation like that? Yeah. Well, and how do you deal with it?
Usually I hear, oh, we can't afford to hire someone like that. And I come right back at them and I say, actually, you can't afford not to hire someone like that. So it's always, first and foremost, it's the money. That's the number one excuse. We can't afford to hire like an A+ player. We're going to hire a B player, but we want them to be an A+ player. So, we have that whole conversation of you get what you pay for, right? And
this
that
is very
takes
true.
a while.
Yeah. That's often a very good excuse. And I'll be honest with you, I am also as guilty as charged, and I think that any leader that actually is listening to this conversation between us is they are also guilty of hiring what I call inferior talent. But sometimes it's not necessarily attached to money. It's generally because, hey, this person sound like a really nice person, and they sound like they could do, and we just didn't do the due diligence or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think what we're finding now is because at this point in time, there is an abundance of talent. A lot of companies are trying to buy people on sale, right? And so when you buy somebody on sale, that may be fine for now. But then like 6 months from now, a year from now, when the economy changes, when the labor market changes, those are going to be the first people to exit because they don't want to be bought on sale. So my advice to my clients is, pay people for the value that they bring to your organization. And don't worry about if you're, 5 to 10% above market. It'll be an investment that will pay off in spades.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually. I guess it's just that convincing though, right? That belief that, and it's really difficult to change a rhetorical where you believe in something when it's very difficult to kind of come to the conclusion that actually it might not be true. And so, but then when you come in, it's like, well, why do you think that way? Like, tell me, what's the thought pattern that's going through your mind? What are some of the other things that often come up apart from money? Is there anything else that kind of are common themes around this exercise at all?
Oh, well, I think today, and you and I were chatting about this offline, oh, AI can do that. We could just get AI to do that. We don't need to hire people. And I'm like, well, if you could get AI to do that, why haven't you done that already? Right. So, that's a question that they have to answer. But AI can certainly help us and make us more efficient and more productive. But I don't think it's ready to replace all of us just yet.
I absolutely agree. And just talking about AI, we'll come back to the AI thing because I think that's a whole new conversation that we could have probably for an hour plus, but we'll come back to that. But I want to address something that you did say earlier, which was one of the things that come up in conversations that you have with a lot of clients is, and I certainly have had this with founders and leaders where they feel like they need to hire like a mini me or a mini version of themselves. And you would have heard this like so many times, right? And I'm like, no, don't say that, right? That's stupid. Now, obviously, a lot of leaders and founders are going to be very biased towards their own strengths, obviously. But how can we help them to identify the gaps within the team so that they can look kind of a top-down perspective and say, actually we need to hire here, or we need to get maybe an operations person here, or whatever it is. Are there any exercises that you'd recommend, or is there something that you would kind of help sort of lead us towards that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I recommend when they're replacing a position, when somebody leaves, is I tell them to tear up the job description, because the job that they're trying to fill today is more than likely, and especially if they're a small business owner or a leader in a small business, is no longer the job that they need done tomorrow. So I say, let's tear up the job description. Let's write a new job description for today. And now that you have an opportunity to hire for today, what is it that you need? Where are the gaps in the organization? What do you need this person to be able to do? What's the skill level you need? You don't need to hire another John or another Mary. You need to hire the right person for the right time, the time that you're in.
I think you made a really valid point there. I know that with regards to, I'm sure that your latest book, which is The Talent Maximizer, what was it, the latest book that you wrote last year in 24?
Well, it's the third edition of Suddenly in Charge.
That's right, Suddenly in Charge. As I remember us talking about it, and I think that you had also created some frameworks about how you could go about doing that. If you could give the audience, I think that there was a 5 or a 7-step framework around that. And by the way, for you guys that haven't listened to the first episode, do pause this episode and re-listen to that first episode, because there are some great points that Roberta has made to that. And what we're doing right now is we're actually just kind of giving you guys a bit of an update as to, because the world has moved on in a very different place and it's moved in a very different direction. Again, especially if you're really struggling with the talent acquisition and recruitment side of stuff and building a team, it's going to maybe look a little bit different in terms of the way that you approach it as well. Sorry, any thoughts there?
I think what's important to recognize is that when I wrote the book Suddenly in Charge, I wrote the first edition, gosh, I think it was 12 years ago. And then I wrote another edition, and then I updated it yet again for the after COVID world. But what I found when I went through the book was that a lot of the principles were evergreen. They still applied, although the situations were different. So as I think about Suddenly in Charge today, it is still an amazing guide for leaders who are newly in charge, leaders who may have never had any professional leadership development. I think it's a great resource. And when it comes to talent, it's always about like knowing what you need, not just going out and putting bodies into seats, like really thinking through what you need and knowing how to select for success. how do you interview? And it's not just asking a list of questions and checking off, oh, yep, she's alive. Yep, she answered this right. It's like, oh, she said this, but her mannerisms said something else. I don't think she really loves that part of the job. And that's the main piece of this role. So it's really being much more in tune to how people are responding rather than what they're saying. So it's about really getting clear on what you need and then evaluating candidates based on their skills and what you need for tomorrow. And I know I'm not quite answering your question, but I promise you it's all in the book. And that's on Amazon, so that's easy.
Absolutely. By the way, that was a soft sell, so that's okay, guys. It's okay to soft sell here, okay? That's all good. And I think you made a very valid point, actually, because I feel like a lot of our listeners are very inexperienced at hiring really good people, because it's not like we went to business school and they taught us how to recruit people correctly.
Guess what? They don't teach you that. I went to business school. They don't teach you that in business school. So don't worry, you didn't miss out on anything.
And it's the same for any school, law school, like business school, entrepreneurship.
They don't teach you that.
They don't teach you any of that crap. Like and I feel like the whole kind of like attracting, the right types of people. I feel like as a founder and a leader, the biggest thing that I feel like what really held me back in my first hire was that fear of doing it wrong, and that kind of fear of, if I hire the wrong person, it's going to cost me big. And I feel like that is still the case, whether it be the first hire or the 99th hire or the 500th hire, it doesn't really matter. I feel like, again, is that if you carry that burden around with you, that you're going to consistently make mistakes, which you will, of course. And if you carry that burden around with you, then it's kind of, you're setting yourself up for doom and gloom type of thing. And you will attract the wrong types of people. When you have conversations with people like that, how do you get them to change that mindset shift? Where does that start?
Well, I mean, again, it starts in the mind, right? You have to be confident, right? You have to presume good intent. You have to presume you're going to make a good hire, right? Because I don't think anybody goes out there and says, I'm probably going to make a really crappy hire here. You have to presume good intent. But, the landscape has changed dramatically since you and I have spoken. And today, when you post a job on LinkedIn, I mean, within hours, you'll have like 500, 1,000 responses, right? And that's just nuts. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing with my clients today is really helping them brand their organization and helping their leaders become magnetic leaders, because it's a lot easier to hire people when you have people coming to you who want to work for you because they've heard great things about you. They've heard great things about your company. And so you have a line of people waiting outside your door, just waiting for an opening, as opposed to having to post on, Indeed or LinkedIn or wherever you're posting, and then being inundated with so many resumes, you don't even know what to do.
You hit the nail on the head there. And I think you're absolutely right. I just want to kind of like piggyback off of what you just said there. Now, a lot of our listeners are small to medium-sized professional services firms. And, if you're in the market for attracting, say, an A player, as you defined it, but you're up against the Googles of the world, whatever the Googles of the world in their industry specifically is, I guess the question would be is, how can I attract those A players when we've got all these wonderful Googles out there offering them bigger packages, apart from obviously offering them maybe a substantially better financial package? How can we, as small business and business founders, create that unique selling proposition that actually gives us that edge over those big companies? Because guess what? Those companies are going to have much bigger resources, aren't they?
Okay, so not to date ourselves for this episode, but today Amazon did a huge layoff, like 14,000 people. Today, Paramount, they announced that they were going to be letting 1,000 people in their corporate office go. Walmart just announced thousands of people will be gone. Let me tell you, if you're a small business owner right now, if I were a job seeker, I'd be knocking on your door, because I don't want to work for one of those people because I'll be here today and gone tomorrow. So you have a huge advantage. You have the ability to have a relationship with your employees. Like you actually might know their name and the name of their partner and maybe one or two of their kids. Like who does that, right? And you have an opportunity to invite them in through social media to see what it's really like to work in your company and your environment. And that's the kind of work that I do with my clients. I help them get the word out through their social media, through their writing, just speaking at conferences, so that people come up to them after and like, oh, wow, I'm so impressed with your organization. Might you have any opportunities? And that sure as heck beats going through thousands of resumes or paying a recruiter 30%, a third party agency. That really is a much better way to get good people. And when you're a really good leader, it's amazing because people in your company will actually recommend you to their friends because they're like, oh my gosh, you really want to work with Sue. She's amazing, right? So you have so many advantages right now, so many more than the large companies. So I would say, take advantage of them because they are losing talent left and right. And these people who are looking for jobs, please, they are not tainted. They didn't get rid of the worst people because the worst people at Amazon are probably 10 times better than some of the people you were able to get just a year or two ago. So don't let that scare you.
Are you planning to sell your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Then you already know it's not just about finding a buyer, it's about actually protecting what you've actually built. That's where our sponsor, Adam Benedict, comes in. They're one of the leading premier M&A legal firms trusted by founders to simplify complex exits, protect value, and deliver results. And if you want a smart, smoother, and strategic exit, visit adambenedict.co.uk. And I know that the labor market is a very interesting way the world is, depending on if you're in the US, UK, Western world, whatever it might be. But I guess what you're saying is those bigger companies are just treating people like a number rather than recognizing them for their talents, right?
I just posted this today. Our people are our most important assets. Here's your layoff notice. We treat our people like family. Sorry, sayonara. It's like, really? Like, those are just taglines. And small business owners and leaders in smaller organizations, they are able to take the time to really develop strong relationships, which in turn will result in employee retention and the attraction of new talent.
And I think that's really refreshing, actually, because what one's demise is not so good, whereas a small business is saying it's got a huge, I suppose, non-financial value proposition over the bigger companies, which is humongous. And you've rightly pointed out some great stuff there. I think that's fantastic. The other thing I was going to say to you is that you mentioned earlier on around if you were to post something on, say, LinkedIn as a job advertisement, right? You want to hire someone, or it is, you've got like 500 applicants within the best part of an hour. And what's the best way to filter the good ones from the crap ones, right? So we got the C players to the A players. What's the first thing that you get people to do to like really filter down to maybe, I don't know, the last 10? Like, is there a process?
Yes, don't do it. The beauty of LinkedIn is you can go through your network, right? And you can post to your network, hey, we're growing and we have an opportunity for somebody who does social media, looking for somebody with 3 to 5 years. Do you know anybody? And chances are somebody knows somebody. So maybe instead of getting 500 people, you'll get, 40, which 30, 20 of them will probably be pretty good and maybe the other 20 not so good. So it'll be a lot easier to go through them and figure out, okay, these are the 5 people that I'm going to speak to.
It's really interesting. I wrote something down on here, and it's a philosophy, Roberta, that I have, I suppose, taken under my wing for many, many years. And I think that it has served me well. But I'm going to share you my philosophy, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are and if there's any truth in it, right? So my philosophy is that you hire slow and fire fast. Now, you would have heard of this philosophy before, but it definitely has served me very well. Is there any truth to this concept? Do you believe in this concept? And is it a great way to attract and retain top talent?
Absolutely not.
Okay, tell me why not. I love it when we come to these conversations. Okay, go.
Hire slow. Let me tell you, if somebody's really good,
Yeah.
while you're hiring slowly and you're kind of, interviewing 20 other people, somebody like me who can recognize talent and says, oh my gosh, this is our person. I'm going to be out there with an offer within, 48 hours while you're hiring slow. So now your number one candidate is gone. It's sort of like trying to buy a house, right? If you really want that house, you better make that offer. We're going to look at 20 other homes. Well, great, because this one will be gone before the weekend is over.
Do you know what? That's a really interesting, an interesting analogy. It goes back to if you really, really want something and you really believe in what the person's saying to you, and you just make a decision there and then.
Anything.
Yeah, got to do your due diligence, and they check out all fine. Then I suppose it would go back to the whole kind of like, well, it would be this kind of balanced debate in my mind, which would be, why should I hire this person straight away? Like, why not find there could be other like talented individuals which could be better? Like, and it's always
there will be other people.
Yeah.
There will be other people who could be better. Some of us are married, right? Eventually we said yes, right?
True.
Or were there better people out there?
That's true.
Maybe.
That's true.
But, if you find the one, then you just go for it and you figure it out. So, I think that's one of those things that you're always thinking, oh, there must be somebody better. There must be somebody better. But guess what? There's a better company than yours, too. So if you think it's a good fit, if you've done the work, if you learned how to interview, you've checked their references, they were a personal referral, you stand a much stronger chance of making this is going to be a good hire, as opposed to, I'm just going to keep shopping.
Yeah. You made a very valid point. And it's interesting. I remember a few months ago, I was actually speaking to a business owner, and they had the same rhetorical about, really struggling to find the right talent or hire A players, as we like to call them. But actually, in reality, they were really perfectionists. They were never satisfied about who they were actually. What's the best advice that you have for what I call perfectionist-based leaders that just, regardless of whatever they say, they just never move forwards because they're being too picky? Well, I'm sure you've come across that before, right?
I tell them to stop it. Really, just stop it. It's annoying. You're not perfect. Sorry. Nobody's perfect. And if you can get, 90%, damn, you're doing really well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a good point. We talked about AI because 18 months ago, I don't even think it even came up in conversation.
I don't think I've heard of it 18 months ago.
No, and now, like, it's just amazing how things have really shifted over the last 18 months in AI, and I feel like, and you'll see this across the United States and in every country, is that a lot of leaders think that AI is going to replace talent. AI is going to replace my team because it's quicker, it's cheaper. It can do 80% of what a person can do. So why the hell should I fork out on a high 5-6-figure salary when I can get AI to do, right?
I have to ask you.
Go on.
When is the last time you had a satisfying conversation on a helpline where you were talking to AI and you hung up and said, damn, I'd love to do business with this company again. This was great. Really? We just had one of those. And my husband and I were looking at each other like, what? We just wanted to talk to a person. It would take 2 seconds to resolve. Yeah. And it was like 20 minutes later, this, AI person was chatting with us. It's not going to do what you think it's going to do, right? It's just going to piss off your clients.
I agree. You know, it was really interesting. So I think it was like Friday. I was on the virtual chat, right? I was trying to get through to an agent for my cell phone provider because I was trying to get them to, because I was up for contract negotiation. It took me 30 minutes just to try to get through to the agent. And then it took them another 30 to 45 minutes before I even got to the end of the conversation. Now, if I'd have just picked up the phone, or if someone was able to be on the other line to pick up the phone and done it in 10 minutes, would have saved me so much time.
Well, I think it's really interesting now how some companies are using AI to call you, for sale, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
really? Really? You think,
Yeah.
hey, this is Joe from Gutter Cleaners. Like, really? Like, I'm going to really enter into a contract with an AI bot or whatever the hell they're called? I mean, I think, listen, there is a time and a place for AI. So I don't want your listeners or people watching to think, oh my God, this woman is out of it. I think it can be a really useful resource. I
Yes.
think it can make employees much more productive. It certainly can make your life easier, but I think there's a time and a place for it. And I think that as business owners, you have to figure out, is my business based on relationships or is it transactions? Because if it's just on transactions and nobody ever has to call and talk to anybody, go for it. But if it's based on relationships, then you really want to think twice about what kind of person do I really need in this role? What do I need? Do I need a person? Do I need a chat bot? What the hell do I need, right?
But it's really interesting now because you mentioned a very good point around like the fact that Walmart was laying people off, Amazon was laying people off, and all the big companies are laying people off. And I think that's really, I think AI has contributed to that mindset of we'll get the AI to replace these redundant roles because it's quicker and cheaper. What you're saying is, well, hang on a minute, let's hold your horses here. I guess it depends on the role, number one. But number two, what is it that you're actually trying to get it to replace it in the first place?
And there's a number three. I think a lot of companies are using it as cover, right? Because now you can say, oh, we're going to do a layoff and it's because of AI. And nobody's going to question the fact that you're doing a layoff because either your numbers are down, which Wall Street doesn't really want to know about,
Yep.
or you have people on board who should no longer be there because they're not doing their jobs. So let's just call it a layoff and let's just clean house and let's just blame AI. And that's clean, right? So that's a lot of what I think's going on.
How do you think that and it's interesting because I mean the world's in a very funny place right now without going into anything too deep and sophisticated. How does that then affect the labor market, recruitment, talent? How does that affect you in terms of like, are more companies coming to you because they're looking for more specific types of roles and they're not able to attract the right types of people or a specific niche? Or is it that they're a little bit stuck? Like, how has the conversation shifted from, say, 18 months ago to what it is now?
Well, that's a great question. I recently did a program for a major financial institute. You're probably carrying their credit card, okay?
Okay, that's cool.
And the whole purpose of that was that their director wanted their people to be brand ambassadors. They wanted them to attract talent. They wanted them to be pulling the talent in because they do have roles to fill. And they recognize that by posting, they're not getting the kinds of people they want, or it's overwhelming because they have half the staff now in their HR departments as they had a year or two ago. So I think they were very smart to do that, to teach their managers and give them the tools they need to be more visible. And so that people would then engage with them online. And then when a job was posted or they said, hey, my company's hiring, people would be like, oh, hey, I've been following you and I see what your workplace is like. And I would love to, connect and see if there might be an opportunity. And so that's what they're doing. And I think that's a really smart move to really, a lot of people think social media, what a waste of time, but it's really not. It's about getting the word out about your organization and letting people see everything, the warts as well. Like, Oh God, it was a terrible day today. I made a huge mistake, and guess what? Like my boss didn't yell at me. This is great. So just being authentic, and that's what they're doing. Their leaders are building authentic brands, their own personal brands, which are reflective of the organization.
I remember back, we've gone through these different rhetoricals over the past 5 years. Do you remember when we had like the silent resonator, I think it was called? What was it called again? The silent.
Well, silent
Yeah,
resignations
silent
and,
resonation. That's right,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. So we had these like different, I'm going to call them themes just for the sake of it. What are you pre-anticipating the next theme to be? What do we need to be aware of as business owners?
I think we have a lot of angry people.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have a lot of people who are frustrated because they are stuck in these jobs. There is nowhere for them to go. At least that is how it is here in the US. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but the market has really stalled as far as jobs go. And I think that they're frustrated and they're angry. And I think as soon as things change, and they will change, I can't tell you if it's in a year from now, 2 years, next week. I cannot tell you that, but I can tell you they will change. And I think you're going to see a massive exit. I think people are going to be just like, I don't even think they're going to give you 2 weeks notice. I think they're just going to say, I'm out of here.
I think you made a really good point there. It becomes like a tug of war between business and people that are trying to hire talent can become, you mentioned around the whole kind of frustration, people that are open to the job market, you've then got this kind of like great refusal to work lie type of thing. What do you think about that? Do you think that this is kind of like you're already seeing like the kind of like chemistry set or the ingredients where you're already seeing it happening?
Oh, I did a webinar on the great refusal to work lie. And oh my gosh, you talk about record attendance. I was shocked how many people registered for this webinar. And I just said that's just such BS that, people walk around going, nobody wants to work these days and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, they just don't want to work for you. Okay. Or they don't want to work for $10 an hour. Like it's not them, it's you.
Yeah.
And, because there are plenty of people that want to work. All
Yes.
right. So, and they are taking jobs and they're getting jobs. But if you are finding that nobody wants to come work for you, I think you really need to step back and reflect and say, is it really just me? And you'll hear that a lot from restaurant owners or retail owners. But, somebody's working at the Apple store, right? They
That's
got a
true.
lot of people. Somebody's working. We have a store here called Trader Joe's. You have Aldi's. People are working there.
Yep.
And they seem to be enjoying it. So you just can't really go there. There might be something that you're doing. And, once we can unpeel that and reveal that, then, and I do a lot of work with, business owners to help them understand that their culture may not be what they think. Then you're on the way to making some repairs. But it has to start with, you have to walk away from these people who are telling you this, because I know a lot of times, business owners get together in these, business groups and everybody's just dishing the same stuff, right? And you're breathing your own exhaust.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's like, oh yeah, it's so bad. And that's why it's helpful to have someone like you or myself in the room to say, hang on, folks, you're looking at a very small sliver. And by the way, you're not just competing for talent with other small business people. You're competing with the hospital across the street and the new restaurant that opened and the new tech company that started.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. Now, you've got a business owner that wants to exit in the next 3 to 5 years, but he feels like he really needs to double down and attract the right types of people to get that chemistry right. Where would you start? What would be the good starting blocks from your perspective?
Well, first I'd start with the people they have, because they probably have some really good people who, with some coaching, and I do a lot of coaching, can get where they need to go. And the best time is to start now, not 6 months before you want to sell, right?
True.
And so if you can offer people opportunities within your organization to promote, I mean, that's really going to help your retention. And they have been with your company for a while, so they know what it's all about. You don't have to retrain them, right? Or train them on things that somebody like you or me walking in off the street would not know. So, I would start by looking inside and saying, what is my succession plan here? Who can I move into what role? And what skills do they need in order to get there? And are they interested in that? And that's where I would start.
Hey guys, me again. And I just want to remind you about the Exit Readiness Assessment, the most amazing tool for CEOs and founders that are looking to build a self-managing company. This will help you to identify what's blocking you from helping you to step out your business operations and effectively scale up and eventually exit over the next 12 to 36 months. It gives you a personalized report and you can complete it in less than 4 minutes. All you have to do is head over to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com to get your personalized score. Enjoy. I think you make a really valid point there. And I love the fact that, and one thing that I picked up from what you said is identifying people within your organization or your business and put them in a place where they're most suited to potentially on that role, but to have an open conversation or keep communication open around that and see what their thoughts are about it, right? And I love that. I think you've really articulated that in a really beautiful way. I want to kind of backtrack a little bit about you guide a lot of businesses that, and we talked about the whole kind of great refusal to work type of thing. You mentioned around this whole switch of, well, hang on a minute, talent is attracted to the leader rather than the business itself, right? And there seems to be this kind of, I suppose, this train of thought where it actually used to be the other way around, but now it's very much about people and the leader that they work with. How are you helping leaders to increase their personal brand or position them in a place of power rather than a place of, I'm desperate, I need to fill the.
Well, I think we have to first start with where I start is helping them become what I call a magnetic leader, be a great leader, right? Because all the social media in the world isn't going to cover up for the fact that, oh yeah, my boss is a yeller. He like yells at people. Like you might be able to attract people, but you're not going to keep them. And people will get suspicious. Why is that role open again? Didn't they just post that job like 2 months ago? Like, or they'll go onto a place like Glassdoor where people can say whatever they want about their work experience. And they'll keep reading like the leadership is out of touch. It's a toxic work environment. It's like, we have to get the leaders to a place where people actually want to work for them. They're motivated. They feel good about coming into work. And that's where it really has to start. It's really about the leadership. And I say this, and if you've read any of my articles, many of them start with people don't work for companies, they work for people.
Yeah, I
And I do
agree.
think you're right, though. Years ago, it'd be like IBM, right? Like Google, like, you'd mention these companies, these great brands, and people would kill to work there. And today, not so much.
No. You make a really valid point there. The classic, companies that are out there, and I feel like it would be a privilege to work for those companies when you did. You'd be proud employee to work for those IBMs and the Apples and you know what I mean?
I did work for IBM.
Well,
So yes, I know exactly
or
what you
Compaq or
mean.
whatever it is.
Yes.
That you used to work for. But I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of feel like the whole ideology of this people buy people analogy is so true to this day and age. In your book, Magnetic Leadership, how do you define one that is classed as a leader and someone that is magnetic? Like, what's the core differentiations between the two?
Well, in the book, I list, I think it was 7 different traits.
Okay.
A couple that come to mind, one was authenticity. somebody, you know who they are. You're not wondering the day you go into work, like, oh my God, is this going to be Dracula? Is this going to be, my fairy godmother? Like, who is this person today? They were authentic. Another trait was they were transparent. In
Yep.
other words, they wouldn't BS you. If the company wasn't doing well and you went to your boss and you said, oh, I think I'm going to buy a house, your boss might say, this might not be the right time to buy a house. They wouldn't say, oh, congratulations, go get a mortgage. So, because you probably won't have a job next week, right? So, they had certain traits that I found that were consistent when I was looking at leaders who I felt were magnetic.
Yeah.
And those are just like two of the many traits that I define in the book.
I mean, authenticity is, it's one of those, what I call traits that's been kicking around the can for probably the best part of 5 or 6 years anyway. What you're saying then is, if you understand these 7 core traits, is give us like 1 or 2 practical exercises that we could do to, I suppose, become more of a magnetic leader. Are there any exercises from the book that kind of stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can think about a difficult conversation that you've been avoiding. And if you can't figure out how to handle that, I did write a book called Can We Talk? Okay, all about difficult work conversations.
Yep.
I think a good way to do that is to kind of think about, is there a situation that I've been avoiding? Do I really need to have a conversation with somebody that I'm not had? And then make it a point to sit down and have that conversation and do it in a way that's productive, and so that that person has an opportunity to improve, rather than you getting so frustrated that you're like, you're out of here, like, I'm done with you, whatever. So I think it's really important to, you know, look at leaders who you admire and think about what their traits are, and then ask yourself, oh, well, I have this and this, but I'm not really like that. What do I need to do to get there? Or hire yourself a coach, because a good coach will be able to find out from the people that you work with, who you report to you, who are your peers, your boss, like what people really like about you and what you're doing really well and what you're not.
I remember I've never really had a real job, if you want to call it that, but because I've always been an entrepreneur, and the only time that came to my mind was when I worked for McDonald's when I was in college, because I had to pay for college and stuff, right? I'll be honest with you, like, as a boss, I think I sucked, in all honesty, probably because of my immaturity. I was running a restaurant. It was turning over £9 million, which is about $13 million. And we had 100 staff, and I was 21 years old. So
Okay.
it was pretty high pressured stuff, but we were selling hamburgers for, like, I don't know, 60 cents a pop.
Oh.
Back in the day, I feel like one of the things that really helped me, not just because McDonald's was a great system, but I felt like I began to admire some of the mentors that were kind of giving me some words of wisdom. It made me wanted to become more like them, but I wanted to be me. You made a really valid point around looking for leaders that you admire that kind of share similar values, but in a way you don't want to become them. You want to become your own person. How do we find that balance?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to your experience at McDonald's. At that time, and I don't know if it's still true today, they happened to do an exceptional job of training people. They had like a McDonald's university, right? They had training programs. When I came out of college, there were training programs. Today, not so much, right? You're all of a sudden, you're promoted. Good luck. Right. And like yourself, I was a leader. I was an executive at age 24. And talk about crappy leaders. I mean, I probably would have gotten that award. And I know this to be true because I wrote a piece for CBS online, and it was called something like An Apology from a First-Time Boss. And one of my former employees actually read it, and she sent me a note, and she said, you weren't that bad. And I knew when she said that, that, oh God, I was probably worse, right? And I wrote this book because I didn't want anybody else to have to suffer with a leader like I was, because I didn't know. Nobody trained me. And that's this whole business of us putting people in these leadership roles who either aren't ready, I mean, or don't have the skills or aren't trained. But then you're put in the job and you're told you're a leader. And it just, whatever happens, happens, right? And you and I probably had very similar experiences. And it's a shame. And I really wish that leaders, before promoting people, would think about, you know, am I able to provide this person with some support? Like, can I get them a coach? Can I get them into a training program? I'm not talking about a half a day at the Holiday Inn. I'm talking about like something that's a little more long lasting.
And I remember our first time where we did our conversation over 18 months ago, and we had a very similar dialogue around this. I remember having it really stuck out in my mind. For you guys, this is an intriguing conversation. Make sure you go back and re-listen to that. It was around April 24. So just to give you it was around that date, March, April, May of 24. So you can check that out. We could talk a lot about this topic, but I know that we're kind of coming towards the end of our conversation. And listen, it's been great to catch up with you. And second of all, I'm so I suppose drawn back about the fact that things have just moved on at such a fast pace since we last talked. And I'm not being funny. 18 months ago isn't really that long ago, is it? Really?
No, no. And I hadn't really thought about that until we were talking and you said it was 18 months. And I'm like, oh my God, like 18 months ago, what was AI? Like nobody was getting laid off. People couldn't find people. Like the world has changed dramatically. And I imagine you and I should catch up again in 18 months because things are going to look a lot different.
Any final thoughts for our listeners, especially, I suppose, shifted and things like that, for the listeners that maybe are struggling to attract those A players and maybe challenging some of those belief systems? Any final thoughts about that at all?
Well, you and we have a promotion, right?
We do.
So why don't you tell our guests?
Well, listen, okay, that's a good point. So in the show description note, you will see that there are there's a call to action in there where Roberta is kindly offering some coaching in there. You can take a look at it. It's not for everyone, by the way. Her email address is in the show description notes. And if you are finding it a little bit tricky to hire the right talent, and you're or in fact, if you're really struggling or whatever, do reach out to her. Or if you prefer, do go over to Amazon and check out some of the books that we've talked about. Suddenly in Charge, you've got the Magnetic Leadership one, Evergreen Talent. There's many different books which I feel are actually still very much as important today than they were when they were written, whether it be 18 months ago, a couple of years ago, whatever it is. I still feel like they're very much in tune with the way the world is today. But listen, this has been a great jam, and I really greatly appreciate your time today. What's next for you, if you don't mind me asking? You've written 7 books, but what are you working on right now? Tell our listeners.
Well, I've put together what I'm calling growth circles. And those are opportunities to pull together groups that are in a similar situation, such as new leaders, where we meet, monthly. It's a very intimate setting. It's all done remotely with their peers. So I bring this inside companies so that people can learn from one another and they face similar challenges and they have an opportunity to get coaching. But it's really for those companies, it offers them an opportunity that's more affordable than when you have to bring somebody in as an individual coach. So I'm super excited about that. I only do 4 a year. I have 1 left for this year. And I'm telling people if they sign up for next year that I'm happy to honor this year's pricing. And they can reach out to me at roberta@matchesonconsulting.com. And I'd be happy to have a conversation about that. But I'm really excited about 2026. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm just going to go like you, Adam, with the flow.
Go with the flow. Go with the flow. Don't let anything get in your way. The resistance is all in our mind, as I say to people. But I think you make a really valid point. There's a great market for creating these small cohorts, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the way the world is right now. I think that having conversations with other leaders that are struggling through the same thing and just helping them through that, man, that's gold. For you guys that are listening in, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. If you have enjoyed our conversation, one thing that I've noticed is if you have not already followed or subscribed, we've got a lot of downloads. We've had a lot of downloads recently, but you guys are not subscribing or following. Please, if there's anything that I could ask of you, please go over to Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, whatever it is, subscribe or follow one of those platforms. And if there is a specific topic, if there's someone specific that you'd like for me to jump on and synergize with, feel free to reach out to me. We're open. We'd love to hear from our listeners. We actually have listeners in over 50 countries around the world, which is insane. But hey, this show is nothing without you guys. So listen, enough from me, Roberta. Hope you're well. Hopefully we'll see you again back on the Business Strategist. Take care and speak soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Rinse knows that greatness takes time, but so does laundry. So Rinse will take your laundry and hand deliver it to your door expertly cleaned. And you can take the time pursuing your passions. Time once spent sorting and waiting, folding and queuing, now spent challenging and innovating and pushing your way to greatness. So pick up the Irish flute or those calligraphy pens or that daunting beef Wellington recipe card and leave the laundry to us. Rinse. It's time to be great.